Hello everyone, and welcome to ZapCon VII, an arcade and pinball convention that was held May 4th and 5th in Mesa, Arizona. Now, as the name implies, this is the 7th year they've had the convention, and this is actually my first year attending it. And it is amazing. There are tons of really awesome arcade machines here, including really old ones like the Stunt Cycle game, and they're all in really great condition, and everything is set to free play, so you can play everything for free with just the cost of admission into the convention. I was really excited to attend this convention because it seems like every year I have to miss it for some reason, either due to a work obligation or because I'm sick or something like that, and I was not let down at all. All of this footage was filmed on a Sunday afternoon, which was the second day of the convention, and it was very busy, and I imagine Saturday was even busier than this. I'm a huge fan of arcade games and pinball machines. I actually own a couple of arcade cabinets and a pinball machine myself, and it was really awesome to just see so many machines that I haven't seen since I was a kid. I was seeing arcade games that I forgot existed until seeing them again at this convention. It was also great that there were arcade games and pinball machines spanning the entire history of arcade games. There were so many machines, Mark and I had a really hard time deciding where to start first. It was almost overwhelming how many machines were here. Greetings, Starfighter. This is a custom Starfighter arcade cabinet from the movie The Last Starfighter. Now, the really cool thing about this is the game that's on this cabinet is freeware, and you can actually download plans to build this cabinet yourself, which I would love to do if I had any woodworking experience at all. Right next to it, there was a custom Polybius cabinet. Now, if you're familiar with arcade or internet folklore at all, you're probably very familiar with this machine. It was supposedly part of a CIA mind control experiment, although I don't think it ever actually existed, but somebody's gone to the trouble to create a game that matches what people describe the Polybius game being, and also the cabinet as well. This was really cool to see. Now, there were also tons and tons of pinball machines here, and I love pinball machines, and this is another area where we were kind of overwhelmed at where to start. And they had pinball machines all the way back to EM machines from the 60s and 70s, up to modern day machines from Stern. So many great games here. Now here over in a more well-lit area of the arcade, we can see even more classic arcade games like that Arkanoid cabinet there. That's one of my favorites. And there were also quite a few Neo Geo 2 and 4 slot arcade cabinets all over the place. They also had lots of technicians on staff to work on any of the cabinets that may have stopped working for some reason, so they did a really good job of just having all the games be playable. Now here's two games I've heard of but never actually played, Radiant Silvergun and Cotton, and these are both highly regarded arcade shooters. And I've never seen these cabinets before. And there's one of my favorites, Karnov. I remember playing this at the Circle K down the street from my house. There were also quite a few electromechanical shooting gallery games, and these are actually really fun to play. I love hearing all the dings and bells and stuff from electromechanical machines.
Did better.
Here's another game I've never heard of, Ponpoko. And this is actually a neat little cabinet. I like the color scheme of it. I also like the gold trim and the wood paneling on the sides. That was what was really great about this convention, was not only seeing all kinds of cabinets from my childhood, but also seeing just tons and tons of cabinets I've never seen. I had a chance to play a lot of games that I'd never played before, and I got quite a few ideas of games to download for my MAME emulator. There was also a small vendor area, but a lot smaller than what a lot of other conventions have, but that makes sense with this convention being primarily focused on the arcade games and pinball machines. I just love hearing all the sounds and everything and seeing all the lights. There's a very old electromechanical pinball machine. That's what I have at home, is I have a Bally Trail Drive cabinet, which is an electromechanical machine, which means there's no chips or anything involved. Everything's handled with relays and switches and things like that.
There's like so many games.
Scoring reels, there's no digital scoring. And there was a good amount of them here. I like to play these tables because they tend to run a little bit slower, so they're a little bit easier to play. The game doesn't go quite as quickly. The learning curve isn't quite as high. I do really enjoy the more modern solid-state machines as well, and we'll see lots of those throughout the video. Most retro gaming conventions have a free-play arcade area, but this is the largest collection of arcade games in one place I think I've ever seen. And here's Cyberball 2072. This is another one of those games that I forgot existed, but just seeing it for a second made memories of playing this at Aladdin's Castle at the mall flood back into my brain. Now here's something you don't see very often. This is Circus, which is a wide-body pinball table from Gottlieb. And the last time I saw this table and played it was actually at the Pinball Hall of Fame in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a huge fan of wide-body tables just because they allow for more flippers and more bells and whistles. This table actually has 5 flippers. You've got your 2 bottom flippers plus another flipper on the right above the bottom ones. And then there's 2 little flippers about 2/3 of the way up the table on the left-hand side, which kind of gives you another miniature pinball table kind of feel. You can see me there joking about the number of flippers. It's a really fun game though. And like I said, this being an older table, it's from 1980, so it is solid state, but it still just moves a little bit slower than modern tables, so it gives you a little bit longer to kind of get a feel for the table and learn the rules and things like that. Now this is another one of those machines that I haven't seen since I was a little kid. This is Hockey Championship, and I've tried describing this game to people before, and they always look at me like I have 2 heads, but it is a really fun game to play. It plays similar to foosball, except for that it's hockey, and you slide the poles in and out to move the players, and then you twist them to get them to swing their stick. Now this is over in the vendor area, and they had a bunch of these little small arcade games for sale, and I actually have a few of these. Like for example, I have Rampage. I don't have Joust though. And here's one I've been looking for. This is Fix-It Felix Jr. It's based on the game from the Disney movie Wreck-It Ralph. These are really neat, and I always kind of imagine creating like a miniature arcade similar to how people create miniature railroads, but just with little arcade games and little toys playing them and stuff.
That's a little trackball.
Now this one is Centipede, and it actually has a working trackball. It's a little bit of a bigger scale, but the trackball actually feels really nice, and it's very playable. I even like how the player 1 and player 2 buttons light up just like the original arcade game. These are a little bit more expensive though. But I love Centipede, so I may actually grab one of these later on down the road. Now here's Splatterhouse. This is another arcade cabinet that you don't see very often, and right next to it is Chiller, which is kind of was a controversial game when it came out just because of how violent it is. It's pretty tame by today's standards given the graphical limitations, but it's a light gun shooter, and it's very strange, but it is pretty fun to play. Basically, the point is to score as many points as possible and mangle the bodies that are on the screen as much as possible, either by shooting them or activating different torture devices and stuff. I've never actually played the arcade version of this. I have played the NES Chiller, which doesn't hold a candle to this one. But I've read tons about it, and there's tons of YouTube videos on this game as well. I mean, even Mortal Kombat, which came out much later, was much more gory than this, but people were pretty upset by this game when it came out. I love shooting the guillotine to activate it and have it chop the dude's head off. Now, they also had a little console gaming area, and this was pretty cool. These are giant working NES controllers. And I wish I was recording because the kid that's playing there, he was actually able to pull off the Minus World glitch using the big controller, which I can't even pull it off with a normal controller. But I didn't get my camera out quick enough. And also in that same room, they had a bunch of these cocktail pinball machines. Now, I never knew these existed until fairly recently when I was on a trip to New Mexico in Albuquerque, and I saw one at an antique shop. But they had a whole bunch of them here. These are just weird. I don't know if I'd like to have one of these. I definitely would like to get another pinball machine, but I don't know that it would be a cocktail table. And I don't know how many of these were actually produced. Roy Clark the Entertainer was the one that I saw at the antique shop in Albuquerque. Now here's Deadpool from Stern, and this is a very modern pinball table, as you can tell by looking at it. And this was a very, very fun table to play. Lots and lots of lights, but you can see what I mean. The game just moves much quicker. They even have the little chimichanga truck up there. Now here's Time Soldiers. This is one of my favorite arcade games. This is another one that I used to play at the local pizza place when I was a kid. And this one's neat because the joysticks twist so you can kind of move around similar to Akari Warriors and change the direction you're shooting. And this is Strikes and Spares, which is an interesting pinball bowling type game. I'd never seen this before, and I had a lot of fun playing this. You push one of the flippers once to get it to dispense a ball on that side, and then you push the flipper again to hit the ball. And I was actually really surprised in my very first play of this game, on the very first ball, I managed to get a strike. And you actually do play through a full 10 frames of bowling. It's a pretty neat game. What's amazing about this convention is all of these arcade cabinets and pinball machines are out of people's personal collections, and they lend them to the convention for the weekend. So I really have to say thank you to all those arcade collectors for letting people like me play their games. Now, all of the cabinets do have a label on them stating whether or not they're for sale, so this is actually a good place for people to sell their cabinets as well if they're looking to get some cash. I love this little Galaga cabinet. It's got one of those 60-in-1 arcade cards in it, but it's so cute. I love little cabinets like this, little cabaret cabinets. It was really great being here, just being in this environment. It just brought back memories of playing arcade games at the mall, convenience stores, bowling alleys. There was a time that it seemed like anywhere you went in a retail setting, there was probably going to be an arcade game. Even, drugstores had them and grocery stores had them, and now you just don't see them around anymore, unfortunately. That Ninja Gaiden Game Over screen always used to freak me out when I was a kid. It's kind of horrifying. Now here's another modern pinball machine. This is the Beatles. And this one had an interesting thing that I'd never seen before. There's a gold record in the middle of the table that spins around, and if the ball goes over that, it actually has quite a big effect on which direction the ball's going to go. That was a really neat feature. We had a lot of fun playing this machine. And here's an AC/DC table. And this was another really fun table, and this also had a feature I've never seen before. There's actually another little miniature pinball machine down in the playfield. I thought that was really neat. Here you can see that table in action. That's a cool feature. Now here's Joust, which is another one of my all-time favorite classic arcade games, but right next to it is a Joust 2 cabinet, which from what I understand is actually a really rare cabinet. I'd never even heard of it until I saw a video about it on Mark Bussler's Classic Game Room channel. I didn't think I'd have a chance to play that one outside of a MAME emulator. And there's good old NBA Jam. Of course, Mark and I had to have a rematch from our game at the SoCal Retro Gaming Expo, and this time Mark whipped my butt, I'm sad to say. And here's some more cabaret cabinets. I love those little cabinets. Now this I was surprised to see. This is a Computer Space arcade cabinet all the way from 1971. That is a very rare machine. Pole Position 2, I remember playing that at the local dairy. And here's Video Pinball, which is a quirky little machine. It combines a physical pinball playfield with video graphics. And it's actually pretty fun. This has become one of my favorite conventions, and I'm going to make sure that I come here every year that I can. It's just amazing to see all these old machines again. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this tour of the ZapCon VII Arcade and Pinball Convention. As always, thanks for watching. Want to see your name here? Head on over to patreon.com/retailarchaeology to find out how you can support the Retail Archaeology and Retail Archaeology 2 channels. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out my video on ZapCon, the arcade and pinball convention in Mesa, Arizona. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and also make sure to check out my main channel, the Retail Archaeology channel.